The modern world makes it so that if you're not careful, you can become inundated with, synthetic estrogens that are going to completely skew your hormonal balance. Easier weight gain, man boobs, belly fat, tendency for depression, tendency for being overly emotional. They wait for something to break before they start to invest in their health and their lifestyle.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to Sovereign Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nikki Ballou, and our guest today is Bryan Hardy of Revitalized Men. He helps men take their health and energy to another level without huge, heavy workouts in the gym and bland, boring diets. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you, Nikki. Good to see you. Good to be connected.
Good to see you. Good to be with you. So tell us your backstory, brother.
Yeah. So like many people in the health or helping field, it was by necessity. So I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to be a health coach and a nutritionist and a life coach and, just dedicate my life to being a nerd with all things nutrition. That was not my thought process at all growing up. But when I was 18 years old, so back in 2010, I was in my first year of university and got what I thought was just like a really bad flu. Was very sick for 4 days, couldn't eat, couldn't use the bathroom, couldn't do much just except, stay in my my dorm room and live on Gatorade, essentially. But that culminated in some of the most intense abdominal pain and acid reflux I had ever experienced in my entire life. To the point where I'm like, okay, something is seriously wrong here. Let me go to the hospital. Long story short, the first hospital I went to completely missed what was going on. So what was happening was my appendix was rupturing. They totally missed that. They did an x-ray. They gave me 2 shots of morphine, a prescription for Tylenol 3s. I popped 2 of those. So I'm drugged out of my mind to deal with this pain. And then they did an x-ray and said, oh, you looks like you have the flu. You should go home and sleep it off and you'll probably miss a couple of days of school, but nothing too serious. And there I am, haven't basically eaten or slept in 4 days, haven't slept that entire night, drugged on heavy opiates, and I'm just kind of in disbelief. Like something is seriously wrong. Like you guys got to do something. But they discharged me, and I just kind of sat there, and then had the wherewithal to call my mom, who's about an hour away, and she comes, picks me up, go to a second hospital where they do a CT scan, and they tell me, "You're a mess. We have to do surgery right away. It's likely your appendix is completely gone at this point from what we can tell. You might wake up with a colostomy bag, which is essentially a poop bag on the outside of your body." Yeah, that's worst case scenario. That was worst case scenario. You might wake up with that. So just be prepared, but hopefully it's just your appendix. And thank God it was just the appendix. So they cleaned me up. They did life-saving surgery. And I always tell people I would not be here if it wasn't for emergency medicine and for prescription antibiotics. Those are the only ways that I was kept alive during that time. But when I started asking the doctors and the nurses, why did this happen? Could I have prevented this from happening? What should I do to, make sure that I don't have something like this happen in the future? And all of the answers I got were very lackluster. They were very much just like, oh, well, we don't really know. It's kind of genetic. It kind of just happens. We can't really tell when it's going to happen, but don't worry about it too much. Just eat enough protein and you'll recover and, get back to your life. And that was a very unsatisfying answer because I like to know how things work. And having almost died at the age of 18, I thought that was a good thing to want to know, why that came to pass. All of this culminated in about a year later, intense digestive issues, all the antibiotics that I was on to keep me alive. And many of us have been through many courses of antibiotics. They're fantastic tools, but they leave you open for infections, opportunistic infections, overgrowth of the kind of things you don't want. And so that was me. About a year later, I was feeling absolutely terrible. I couldn't digest most foods. I was bloated all the time. I was gassy all the time. My brain was not functioning, always tired, even though I slept 8-9 hours a night, and had no libido, had no drive, just wanted to figure out how to feel better again, how to feel like myself. Yeah. That led me to seeing a naturopath. She introduced me to the realm of holistic nutrition. And it's kind of been history ever since. I became absolutely obsessed. I wanted to learn everything I could about human health, about men's health, about nutrition, supplementation, herbal medicine, everything and anything integrative that could support true well-being, true thriving in myself, first of all. And that took a few years to really get a handle on. And then beyond that, I thought, well, I've already dedicated so much time and I'm clearly obsessed with this field. Why don't I continue? And ended up finding a holistic nutrition school and did a bunch of certifications, and then started working in the field.
Right. So you said something to me off camera, which I found quite startling, which you said that you can be in fantastic health without spending a ton of time in the gym. I'm a guy who spends a ton of time in the gym. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and it's not to say that the gym is bad or that you shouldn't work out in a gym or that you shouldn't lift weights. I do all those things. I love to lift weights. The gym for me is like a playground. It's a place I go to let off steam. It's a place I go to push myself, to test myself. I've been doing that fairly consistently since I was like 14 years old. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of working out. What I mean is that especially in today's social media influencer, TikTok, short attention span world, you see people who it's their career is to be jacked and ripped, right? That's what they do for a living. And so the kinds of workouts and the kinds of volume that they do, and that someone watching might think, well, I guess I have to go to the gym for 5 times a week for an hour and completely crush myself if I want to be healthy. That's what I mean. You don't have to do that just to be healthy, even to be very strong and or very lean. You can get a tremendous workout in 20, 30 minutes of focused, high-intensity effort. You don't have to be slamming weights around for an hour plus. If you want to, and if your body can tolerate that and recover from that and it fits into your lifestyle, then go for it. But many of the people I speak to, they're fathers, they're business people, they're executives, they don't have an hour every day to be working out, even if they wanted to. And many times their sleep and their nutrition is not dialed in to actually support the kind of volume that they'd be trying to do if they're trying to like compete or be, a professional athlete or a bodybuilder of some kind. So it has to be made to fit into the individual's life. That's what I say. And so if you want to work out a bunch in the gym, you can. You don't have to, but you do need to move. That's non-negotiable, right? You do have to move. Whether that's walking, running, biking, playing with your kids, riding a bike, playing a sport, and sprinkling in some strength training at least a few times a week if you want a well-rounded approach to your fitness.
So that's interesting. I mean, my own take on it is, I don't know, I think your health should be the number one priority in your life and not anything else. For many years, I used to be in the health and fitness field myself. I got out of it. I got into the business space, and I still worked out every day, but I didn't pay as much attention to dialing in nutrition and dialing in sleep. And my health suffered. And when I started to pay more attention to it, my health got better. And I'm just wondering, what do you say to guys who say, I'm too busy to do this? Can that be a cop-out?
Yeah, it can definitely be a cop-out. And it's an easy one. And it's a understandable one when you feel like, it might not be the reality, but you feel like there's way too many demands on your time. And especially if you have the people pleaser types, right? I was talking to a client recently. He self-identifies as a people pleaser. He's got 3 young kids. He's got a wife. And so they always come first, right? It's like work. I take care of my work. And then everything around that is kids. And then if there's time, wife, and then maybe a little bit for himself, right? And so it's a prioritization issue because we can always find the time. Right? And anybody can find 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a couple times a day. You just got to fit it in. And so I don't care if someone's doing, 10 minutes of calisthenics to start their day, doing that consistently is going to lead to a dramatically better outcome than doing nothing and saying, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time for an hour at the gym plus commuting, changing, etc. This idea people have of what going to the gym has to look like. I don't have time for that, so I'll just do nothing, right? And that's definitely not going to work. And that's definitely it's just an inability to kind of zoom out of their life and cut things out many times when you hear I don't have time, they're spending 2 hours on it watching Netflix, right? So it's like you had the time, it's just going someplace that you're not paying attention to, or you've been unwilling to reallocate that time to something that's actually going to serve and support you.
So what about nutrition? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a confusing world for a lot of people. There's a lot of extremes. Again, this is 2025. This is like the time of the most polarization between the extremes. You got like the vegans over here, you got the carnivores over here, you got the fasting people over here, you got the 6 meals a day people over here. And it often leaves people confused. And for me, again, it has to, one, fit into your life, right? If you are on the road 10 hours a day driving a truck, for example, you're probably going to have a different approach to your nutrition than someone who, works from home and has like pre-prepared meals delivered fresh, every week. They can just pop into the kitchen, throw it in the oven, preheat, come back, it's ready, delicious. If you're on the road, if you're away from home, you have to have preparation in mind because you don't have the ability to have convenient, healthy options around you. A couple simple rules, right? Prioritize protein. I don't care if it's plant or animal. If it's animal, it should be of the highest quality you can access and afford, right? Because there is a difference between factory farmed chicken or factory farmed beef and free range, grass fed, happy, healthy cows and chickens. There's a big difference there in terms of the quality of what's in that meat, the energetic quality of that meat. So that's important to look at. But then it's about figuring out what works best for your metabolism. Right? This is a very individualized thing. Some people are great at burning fat. They can go to a higher fat kind of a diet. Some people are terrible at burning fat, and that can be a genetic thing. It's not just that they haven't done it for long enough or they're doing it wrong. You hear this a lot in diet circles. They say, oh, well, keto didn't work for me. And then the keto zealots or the keto, proponents will say, well, you just didn't do it right, right? You just didn't do it right, is the way that they kind of, invalidate people's experience, when really there's principles that work well for everybody, which is like, don't overeat, right? Eat until you're satisfied, not until you're stuffed, right? Wait until you're hungry to eat, also important, and eat as many whole foods as you can, right? As little ultra processed, convenience kind of foods as you can. If you can just do those things on a regular basis, like 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to be light years ahead of the majority of people who are kind of, they're just in the habit, conscious or unconscious, of going for the convenient option. And so you want to keep it simple. You want to look for whole foods. You want to prioritize protein, and you want to, whenever possible, be having stuff made from scratch.
Cool. So, what do you think is unique about what men deal with when it comes to health and fitness?
I mean, men, we have a very different hormonal profile compared to women. There's also, different societal or internalized expectations of what a man is supposed to look like, right? A lot of guys will feel, even though they might be, strong and fit guys, if they don't have the giant bulging muscles, then they feel like they're failing. And that's completely arbitrary, right? That's completely arbitrary. And so there can be this internalized mental side of things that really messes with guys. The other piece is what I said earlier. It's that guys who are either very family or career driven will tend to sacrifice their own health, will tend to ignore, what's going on, even if they're not feeling great. They'll kind of ignore it. They'll just push through it. They were probably taught that as a young boy or by their parents or people around them modeled that behavior of just, suck it up and keep going. And so they tend to not be as great at asking for help before a crisis hits, right? And so many times like they get a diagnosis of something and then they start taking their health seriously. They wait for something to break before they start to invest in their health and their lifestyle. And I do think it's not exclusively for men, but it's a big thing that I see commonly with men. Again, especially those driven, career and family-oriented men, that can become their number one thing, and they forget that the thing that's enabling them to even go after their goals in career, or to be an engaged father, to be a great dad, it's all dependent on their body. It's all dependent on their health. And so it's easy to miss that and to get those priorities flipped until, crisis strikes, or you end up with some kind of diagnosis, you end up with chest pain or high blood pressure or whatever. And you start to think, okay, I got to really slow down here and pay attention, because if I don't, I'm probably not going to be around for my kids or for my grandkids at this rate.
So you talk about the difference in the hormonal profile of men versus women. So talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. In some ways, it's easier. Certainly, it's easier to be lean and strong as a man than it is a woman, just because we tend to have way more testosterone on board. It's also why men are better at fasting than women. It's a hormonal thing. Many women will start losing their periods and start having lots of issues and stubborn weight loss if they do too much fasting, whereas a lot of guys can just kind of power through and benefit more from different fasting protocols. So in that sense, there's a lot of blessings for being in a male body. In the modern world, though, there tends to be, whether it's from microplastics, whether it's from synthetic fibers, whether it's from chemicals in the food, chemicals in the air, chemicals in the water. A lot of those chemicals are hormone disrupting chemicals, and a lot of them, like BPA is one most people are commonly aware of. Like pretty much all water bottles, if they were soft plastic back in the day, they would have had BPA in that class of chemicals, which are very, hormonally toxic, estrogen mimicking chemicals. And so where we're supposed to have way more testosterone than estrogen, the modern world makes it so that if you're not careful, you can become inundated with synthetic estrogens that are going to completely skew your hormonal balance, right? And that's going to lead to easier weight gain, man boobs, belly fat, tendency for depression, tendency for being overly emotional, or easily triggered and upset. And those are all very much, oh yeah. If someone has the physiology of stressed and inflamed and higher estrogen, I'm talking higher estrogen in relation to testosterone than they should have at their ideal optimum, they're going to be a different human. And mentally and emotionally, not just physically, that's going to be represented.
It's pretty cool to know that. I mean, I definitely did not know that. So, what do you think a man has to do in the modern age, in 2025, to take care of his health in a way that optimizes his energy, his strength, confidence in himself?
Yeah, so there's a few things, and it reminds me of a great example, a client I worked with named Vincent, who is kind of the perfect example of a modern man, younger guy, didn't have a family at the time we were working together, although he's kind of on his way there now. But he was working very long hours, so like 60 plus hour weeks for a big firm, climbing the corporate ladder, doing the thing, grinding it out. And he also just happened to have been diagnosed with a digestive disease, an autoimmune disease, Crohn's disease / ulcerative colitis. And these kind of autoimmune diseases are more common than people would think. Most people just aren't being tested for this stuff, and they're not being screened for it. And so what we had to do in his case, and what I've had to do for a lot of guys, is what I call a digestive reset, right? The gut is the foundation of everything when it comes to nutrition, metabolism, the body, your ability to generate energy. It all starts in the gut. And many times the gut is inflamed, there's the wrong bacteria, there's chronic stress, which makes it really hard for the gut to function and for you to actually digest your food. And so we have to get in there and start resetting those things, right? And so we want to get rid of the inflammatory foods, replace those with the really nourishing foods. We need to many times support things like digestive enzymes, things to stimulate the liver to do its functioning, because it is also a crucial part of our health and our digestion. And again, in the modern world, I haven't met a single person whose liver couldn't use support. We're just inundated with toxicity. And so we're resetting the gut, we're supporting the liver, we're getting detox flowing more. And then from there, we're adding in supplemental nutrition, right? We're adding in therapeutic dosages of vitamins, of minerals, the kinds of things that literally increase your body's stress tolerance so you can handle more stress, as well as recover from whatever stress you're under. And this is mental stress, emotional stress, work stress, physical stress from working out, right? All those things go in the same stress bucket, and we need to support ourselves in order to maintain our capacity to handle that and to not get, broken, or to really go into burnout and become like totally non-functional, which can happen too. And so as we're doing these things, we're working with the body, right? And this is assuming someone doesn't already have a consistent, fitness routine, right? So we're working with the body to start sprinkling in, right? You got 10 minutes in the morning. Okay, give me 10 minutes of calisthenics, right? You got 30 minutes coming home from work. Let's walk those 30 minutes from work. Let's bike home from work, whatever it is, right? It's finding ways to get more movement into that man's life so that he's not just sitting at a desk for 8+ hours a day and then going home and sitting some more. By doing this gut reset process and supporting health from the inside out, in a matter of, 6 to 8 weeks, we see dramatic differences, right? People who are tired all the time, who had, they felt like they lost their spark, is kind of what I hear from a lot of guys. I don't have that spark. I don't have that fire. You mentioned confidence. This also plays into it as well. Because if you're not energized, and or your skin is looking flat, or you're feeling puffy and inflamed, your muscles aren't, showing up, there's no tone there because you've got this layer of fat and inflammation on top. When those things start to change, and they do, because the body wants to revert back to a more balanced, healthy state, which tends to be on the leaner side for most of us. When that happens, and when you look in the mirror and you enjoy what you see, and you've got the energy you want in the morning, confidence goes way up. And so it's this pronged approach, which I call the vital man method, is really addressing these things in sequence, that when we do that, when we install that into an otherwise stressed and malnourished or depleted lifestyle, the body can't help but bounce back and start to really have the energy, have the drive, have the hormones that it was designed to have.
This is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. A man in 2025 wanting to optimize his health, given the plethora of environmental factors that he may not even be aware of that are affecting him. He needs a team, is what I'm hearing. I mean, I definitely have a team, and they don't all know they're on my team, but they're all on my team. Like, I got a guy I work with who coaches me around my bodybuilding. I've got someone I've talked to around breath. I've got someone that I talk to around my mental well-being, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds like what you're saying is you can't do this on your own. You need a team around you to help you navigate all this. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, and it's a great observation, and I love that you've set that up for yourself, because very few have. Right, most guys have not afforded themselves that benefit and that privilege, and which is why it feels so heavy and isolating sometimes, just trying to figure it all out. So yeah, I would 100% agree. Right, you're going to have a whole range of practitioners, whether they're going to work on physical issues, body issues, physiotherapists, massage therapists, you name it, acupuncture. People who do more nutrition and lifestyle and mindset, which is the bank that I'm, working in. People who do more of the high-end fitness performance and these kinds of things, as well as being able to get some good testing done. And there's two kinds of testing, right? We have like the stuff that's covered, at least here in Canada. If people are listening from Ontario or across Canada, they'll know that the government covers the basic level of testing. If you're in the US, you'll know that most testing is either not covered or it's covered by private insurance, but that you can order whatever tests you want down there and just pay. And we actually have those options now in Canada for a lot of things, which is awesome. Because in many cases, you want to take comprehensive testing, whether you're looking at hormones, whether you're looking at, disease risk factors. You want to check in on those things from time to time, make sure there's no like glaringly obvious issues. And if there are, then you want to be able to get support in terms of, putting those markers back into a place that's more ideal. So yeah, assembling that team that you don't have to figure it all out on your own, right? You don't have to spend hours and hours. Because I talk to the average person, and it's hard for me to relate anymore because it's been so long that this has been my obsession and my profession, right? So I've spent like all day for years doing research and testing things and experimenting and working with clients. So it's easy for me to see, what's bullshit, what's legit, what should be investigated more, what makes no sense versus what's just, sounds good for an Instagram clip. But it's a full-time job trying to understand, both what's going on in your own system, which is one big piece, but then also of all the options out there, what's actually going to support me to get me where I want to get to. So absolutely, having a team for that is essential. It's the same reason I have coaches and support for business and for my own personal stuff. It's like, because I can try, I've tried in the past unsuccessfully to manage all those things, but you run into bottlenecks, right? You run into bottlenecks. So if you want to go quicker and easier and have a more enjoyable time, putting people in your corner to support you is going to be probably the best decision you ever made.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned business, right? In business, I have a coaching team. I've got my overall business coach who also does sales coaching for me. And I've got somebody that I work with on marketing and social media types. I've got a guy that works on me with me on putting my podcast together and clips. So it's not like I probably have like 4 coaches in the business realm. And then I've got 2 or 3, I guess, team members. They're not all coaches. Some of them are team members.
Yeah.
That's more accurate. I've probably got like 4 in the personal and health realm as well. And I can't imagine doing everything by myself because I've been someone who's done a lot of things by himself. And after a while, I burned out, especially when I don't have an answer on how to solve the problem. Because burnout, the only real solution for it is just rest and take time off. But the problems that lead to burnout, whether they be health problems, mental health problems, spiritual problems, or business problems, those problems still need to be solved. So I think your overall point of pay attention to this and get a good team around you to help you out is
and it's not even just that, it's isolating and really challenging trying to do it by yourself. But if you wait too long and you burn out too hard or you have some kind of health crisis, there's no guarantee you're going to get back to feeling good. Right? A lot of people end up in just symptom maintenance for the rest of their lives, and just health issues stack on top of health issues, and one prescription stacks on top of the next. And next thing you know, they're balancing like 6 medications. They don't know what half of them do, but they're feeling worse and worse. And so it doesn't have to be that way.
I think that's insane.
Yeah,
I think it's
it
insane.
absolutely.
I think one medication maybe is what someone should stick with. If you're taking 5 or 6 medications, the medications themselves are part of the.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's just, people aren't, they're both uneducated and they're part of a system, right? Like centralized healthcare that is just not designed to keep us well, right? There's incentives for us to be unwell. It's the exact opposite incentives. And that's what I realized with my, near-death experience, the appendix rupture, was that modern medicine is great for keeping you alive, but they can't teach you how to live well. And so for that, we have to look other places.
My friend Sachin Patel calls it sick care, not health care.
100%.
He had a post on social media a while ago, and he said, modern medicine wants to give you a treatment course. He said, you don't need a treatment course. You need a course that takes you to resolution. I thought that was so brilliant, so well said. Resolution is really the way to go. Bryan, it's been fun having you on the show. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Yeah. And first of all, just thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been great. I know it took us a little while to line this up, but it was well worth the wait. And so appreciate what you do and the message you put out there with the Sovereign Man. So it's been an honor. To get a hold of me, the website is the best place, revitalizedman.com. And for people who we talked a little bit about hormones today and some of the things that you need to avoid but I put together at revitalizedman.com/Nicky, Nicky, your name, a free testosterone optimization cheat sheet. And so that's 27 things you could consider doing or adding to your routine, 17 things you should definitely eliminate from your life and your routine if they're there, if you care about having healthy, more naturally optimized levels of energy and testosterone and feeling the way you were designed to feel. So that'll be there as a free gift for anyone who wants to dive a bit deeper and have something practical they can work with when making these changes.
Great. Thank you. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.